Hi there, everybody. I'm going to just go ahead and go through the November 9th and 10th Class 1 lesson. So first thing you're going to notice in Google Classroom, when we get to there, I'll use blue as an example. Okay, so you'll see your stream, and then it looks like the same PowerPoint, but it's actually a little bit different. I just took the writing pieces and put them on a separate PowerPoint, smaller, so hopefully you don't have the loading issues that you had last week at the end of the week. So you can see that we're going to be working through a lot of slides today, slides 1 through 37. You will be taking notes that I will want to look at in the future. So that's going to take some time for you to do today. And it's all going to be focused on writing. Your targets today are really to understand what an introduction needs to include, what a thesis statement is, how to use the new critical lens, and then also what a CEA paragraph and conclusion are. So by the end of the hour, you should be able to do all of those things as you prepare to work on that essay that is due at the end of the week. So in here, we're going to head into classwork. And then I also just want you to notice the materials that I've added are all going to be in here since this is the week of the essay. Here's where you'll post on class 1 your chosen theme and motif. Remember, no two group members can tackle the same ones. You are going to post your completed thesis statement today in class 1 by the end of the day. And then you're going to work through the new critical planner by class 2 and bring that to class. Again, here's the assignment of the paper itself. If you haven't looked at that yet, it has been in your homework for, I think, a week. So please make sure you take the time to look at that. If you have a printer at home, you might want to print that. If you don't have a printer and you want a printed copy, just shoot me an email. I'm happy to print it and you can pick it up in the office. Okay, so long story longer. We're going to head to that new PowerPoint. And again, that first slide is just a reminder. There's some helpful information in here that will perhaps be useful to you when you're working on your paper at home. For example, you may want to take a closer look at the research guide. That's going to give you all of the MLA structure that you need to know and to use in the paper. I'm just going to show you where that is really quickly here. Again, remember the research guide is right here. There will be helpful information here. Again, I'm going to be putting the link to the writing down here in this spot. The structure for that structured notes that you'll be taking today is located here. We also have some grammar support here. So there are a lot of things in that class app that will be useful to you, I think, as you work through the paper. But back to the PowerPoint. We're in Unit 2 Book Club. Here's our agenda. It is the same as the agenda that is on the stream. The first few slides are just looking at some of the motifs. I've got some audio. I've got a link here. This is looking at the big motif of war, but I really want you to think about the fact that your motif about war might be more specific. It should be more specific. Like, what about war? Are we looking at the questioning of the value and the purpose of war? Are we looking at the effect on our family at home when we have someone who is serving in military in war? Are we looking at injuries from war? Are we looking at mental illness as a result of war? We're looking at the psychological kind of dilapidation of some of our military during war. So really make sure you're being more specific than just taking the whole category of war. That's a big chunk to cover and really not that difficult for you to find in most of your books. So this link is amazing. I would suggest you click on this. It's going to show you all the different service, different combative situations that U.S. military have served in over the last probably 19-ish years. And it'll show you how many U.S. soldiers we lost by month in each of those battles. So this is powerful because our news doesn't really cover military much anymore because we've been in combat for so long. This is a place where we honor the fallen. So everyone who's in here has lost their life while serving to support the U.S. military. Home is another big motif that's too big to take. What about home is the motif? The value of memories from home, getting us through difficult times, the dangers of what we learn in our home, what are we looking at in regard to home? The instability of home, the comforts of home. What motif are you really looking for? And again, some audios here to help you with that. And then in some cases, you might be able to make connections between the two. Something that has to do with home and serving in the military. Something that has to do with serving in the military and home. So really think specifically about what message you really heard the author resonate throughout the whole book. And what is the motif that was exposed there? Just a reminder, we are using the reader response and the new critical lens this quarter. The reader response assessment was your discussion post from Friday. And your asynchronous post that was due yesterday. Remember, that's your personal experience of reading. The new critical lens is going to be remember, looking at author structure and author purpose. This one is going to be focusing more on the text itself. Here's the reminder of what that lens is from the beginning of the year. It focuses on your knowledge of language and technique. We're looking at author's craft and really specifically honing in on what did he use in this story to expose the theme that we've selected, the motif we've selected, or the allegory that we've selected. Regardless of whatever lens you're using, first and foremost, we need to make sure we are analyzing the text. The text is the primary focus. On slide number 9, you're going to see the links for the assignment again. This is also in Google Classroom. It's in both places. And the new critical planner. Again, this is here. It's also in Google Classroom. You'll notice when you open this, it's literally a simple fill-in. So make sure that you take some time today to choose your motif, to post that in Google Classroom, to show what the author's theme was about that motif. Remember, the theme is not going to be looking at the characters and things. It's literally the message. It's the message that all of us take from that story, and we can now relate to our lives. Here's the assignment basically for the essay. Using your detailed motif and theme, your again and again annotations from your book club, you're going to be writing a new critical analysis of the book. You'll choose one theme and show how that theme was evidenced throughout the entire book. This essay must include an introduction with a thesis, a multiple body paragraphs of at least 4, and a strong conclusion. And then whenever we write essays, we're going to go through the writing process. So we'll first plan it, then we'll outline it, then we'll draft it, and then we'll go back and edit it to make it better. This is the structure of your essay. You'll have an introduction that's going to have an attention-grabbing technique. You have 3 choices: a quote, an anecdote, or a shocking statement. You'll have a well-written thesis statement. You'll have at least 4 body paragraphs, and then you'll have your conclusion. So take some time right now to pause this film and go into Google Classroom, see what motifs and themes have already been taken, and choose your motif and theme for your book. Okay, now that you're back, we're going to go through some note taking. So get a notebook out, or I'm going to have you open up a blank copy of our structured notes, whichever is easier for you. Might be easier to handwrite it so you can be looking at your screen. So we're going to be using CEA as our format for our body paragraphs, and easily CEA can move into the entire structure of the essay. So these are your structured notes. You can click right on the structured notes to get a copy to fill in for yourself. Always date them. So if you open this up, get rid of the copy of structured notes and just put November 9, Junior English. And so then you'll know those are your notes for today. Again, you have some choices. You can make a copy and use the digital version, or you can handwrite your notes. But regardless, I really want you to use the structured notes with these sections. That's what I'll be talking through. So go ahead and make sure that you've put in the unit name. We're in Unit 1, Freedom and Conflict, America at War. The title of these notes is Essay and CEA. The essential question is, what do good writers do? And the date is November 9th or 10th, depending when your class 1 is. Then you'll give yourself that 1-inch margin over on the left. You'll have a big note section in the middle, and then about a 1-inch margin on the right and on the bottom of the page as well. Okay, here we go. We're in our note-taking world. So we are going to start with putting introduction over in the index on the left side. And I want you to literally draw this. So introduction is going to have 3 key pieces. It's going to have your attention getter. And in this essay's case, you're allowed to use a quote from the book, an anecdote, or a shocking statement that will engage us to your topic, your motif. Then you'll have multiple sentences that lead us away from just the general idea of that motif and theme and towards the specific thesis statement for your book. So you can see that it starts broad and gets very specific. Okay, this is what the whole paper is going to look like. You'll have an introduction that'll narrow on your topic to the heart of your paper, which is the body. Then we'll start really specific to your paper and your book and go back out to the general theme and motif and world. Back to introduction. We're going to do thesis statement information here. So go ahead and in the index, write down thesis statements. A couple of reminders that you'll want to write. Thesis statement is located at the last sentence of your introduction. It is one sentence long. Must include the main idea, the direction of the essay, and why this is important. There are three kinds of thesis statements. There's a closed thesis statement, an open thesis statement, and a counter-argument thesis statement. Write these down in your notes with thesis statement over in the index. Most likely you're most familiar with the closed thesis. That's where we include all of the details in that nice little package. This is like that 5-paragraph essay thesis. There's an example of one right here. Then second choice is an open thesis, which is what we wanted to have you start leaning towards. That's not going to give us every detail, but it's going to allude to what you're going to be covering specifically. We'll still know the theme in this one, but you'll clarify that it's exposed perhaps through multiple characters or through multiple settings or through multiple challenges the author has communicated. That's not going to be as specific as the closed, but it's still going to be a really well-written thesis. Now for this paper, you're not going to use number 3, the counter-argument, because you're not arguing anything. This isn't a persuasive essay, but we will be writing persuasive essays, and this is the kind of thesis statement you'll need to use then. You'll use one that's going to include your opposition in the paragraph, that will include the opposition in the thesis statement, and then it'll also have your direction and your so what. You have the choice between these two for this particular essay. All right, then we've got some fill-ins and some help here on the thesis statement. I've made for you a fill-in. You can literally copy this and fill it in for your paper in blank by blank. The theme of, and then you write that in, is evidenced in what? In which characters, in which relationships. And if you're giving me specific names, that's a closed thesis. I know what you're going to talk about before we get there. If you're not, if you're just saying through many relationships, that's an open thesis. I know those relationships will come later. And then showing readers what's the takeaway about this theme and motif. Again, this is going to just color code to show you where those required pieces are located. The main idea and direction is right here in blue, the theme. The highlighted yellow is looking at the point that you're trying to make throughout the essay. That's the yellow. And then the so what factor is that last piece. That's the pink. Slide 22 is giving you an example of one of these thesis statements. Okay, back to your index. I want you to write down body paragraphs and CEA. Then in the notes, I want you to jot down what a CEA paragraph includes: a topic sentence, claim, evidence, analysis, and a transition. This is where the CEA comes in. This is exactly what I just said, but just in another layout, maybe easier for you to see. Your CEA paragraphs are your body paragraphs of your essay. Those 4 body paragraphs where you're analyzing your book. Each paragraph will have a topic sentence, a more narrowed claim, evidence from the book, several sentences of analysis, perhaps another CEA if you have 2 pieces of evidence to support your claim, and then a transition sentence. Lastly, you're going to close your essay with a conclusion. There's 3 pieces to this too. It's really the reverse of the intro. You can see the triangle is flipped. So we'll have that statement that is very specific, closing what your argument was or your point was, your theme in the book. And then you will work out with many sentences to the more general takeaway theme motif, tying to the audience go back to the strategy that you used in your opener. Again, here's an example of what that summative statement might look like with a fill-in. You may use the fill-in if it works for you. Then several sentences to bridge that connection back to the world on your motif and theme, and close with the same strategy you used in your introduction for cohesion. Again, this is your visual of an essay. The next slides are going to clarify what C and E and A mean, because some of you may never have done this before. So again, here's that structure for a CEA body paragraph. Again, I want to remind you that CEA in your index right now, right? It's a structure, but it's not formulaic, and it shouldn't become boring. Your voice and your fluency and your style and your writing and your diction and your word choice is still going to make it amazing. A claim, write the word claim over there in the index on the left, is a declarative statement of something that you intend to prove. Here's an example of a claim if you've never done this before. Evidence over in the index, and then you're going to write down the definition of evidence, details, quotes, paraphrases that support your claim. Please make sure that you use MLA citations when referring to text. There are two kinds of evidence. There's the direct evidence that comes right from the book. You need to cite that every single time in MLA. And this is what we expect unless you're told otherwise. And then there's something called indirect evidence. And that means I don't have the text because this is maybe a test, and I need to use really specific details from my memory. Okay, that's where reading closely comes in handy. When you're citing direct evidence from a text, please make sure you always use a lead-in. It gives us the context. John Proctor said, comma, quote. The fight was evidenced when, comma, quote. In chapter 17, the fight continued, comma, quote. If you don't, you are quote bombing. I never want to see a quote in a paper without a lead-in, unless it's your opener in your introduction. Here's an example of a lead-in. Now, analysis is the most critical part of an essay, especially at the junior level. This is our area of really intensive focus. This is where you're extending the thinking. You're on the paper, your ideas, your thoughts, your why, your how. You explain in your analysis how and why the evidence you used proves your topic and thesis. You're extending it further by providing an analysis of so what, how and why is this relevant to life today? You're really showing how all of these things work together. Make sure that when you write an analysis, your first sentence restates any clear antecedents. Never include like a they or a he or a it in your analysis. Clarify the antecedent. Who said it? What is the it? Who are the they? And then also in that, please don't go back and restate what the quote said. And please don't write this quote shows. I'm assuming it does. That is why you used it. Analyses are where I really love to see you shine, because I love to see your thinking here. So this is your thoughts and connections. Remember, your ideas should be extended and not just restated. This will be several sentences long. Again, here's that structure for CEA. Sometimes we write just a separate CEA paragraph. In this case, we are writing CEA paragraphs in essay. Again, essay structure, you can stand up, shake out, put your legs out, put your arms up. You are then the essay. That should always be a reminder of what the structure of an essay is. Okie doke. You get a lot of notes today. Go back, make sure your QPR seeing those notes, noting what was new, what you've done before. So reactions, connections, questions. If you have any questions about any of it, don't hesitate to send me an email. I'm happy to set up some meet times with you one-on-one if you need some support, if this is really new for you. Maybe you had a rough freshman or sophomore year and the writing part of it got lost. We just need to work together. You'd have to talk to me about it. Shoot me an email. So homework for you to be aware of for class 1, you should have your motif and theme posted in Google Classroom today by the end of the day. You should have your thesis posted in Google Classroom today, by today. And then your new critical planner needs to be filled out by class 2. So make sure you turn that into Google Classroom when it is completely finished. Your essay itself is going to be due on class 3 of this week. That covers everything, guys. I hope to see you soon in class or on this great meet. Have a good one.